I am disgusted. I am absolutely furious. And if you're not equally outraged after what happened on Raw last night, then you haven't been paying attention to what WWE just destroyed in the name of shock value. Nikki Bella, a woman who hasn't been relevant in WWE for years, who left the company to pursue reality TV fame and outside ventures, who has done nothing to earn her way back into the women's title picture, just returned and brutally attacked Stephanie Vaquer moments after Vaquer retained her Women's World Championship in an incredible match that had the crowd on their feet. And this wasn't just an attack. This was a statement. Nikki Bella, in her first appearance back, completely obliterated one of the most exciting international talents WWE has signed in the past decade, standing over Vaquer's broken body like she just did something heroic instead of committing character assassination on someone who actually earned her spot. But here's what's going to make your blood boil: this wasn't Nikki Bella pitching a comeback and earning her return through proving she still has what it takes. This was WWE begging her to come back because they're desperate for star power heading into the Netflix era, and Nikki had demands. When I reveal what WWE actually paid Nikki to make this appearance, what creative control she demanded, and which current roster member got pulled from a planned title program to make room for this nostalgia-driven train wreck, you're going to understand exactly why the women's division will never be taken as seriously as it should be, because WWE keeps sacrificing the future for the past. Let me paint the picture of this absolute catastrophe so you understand just how badly this was executed. Stephanie Vaquer just had an incredible match. Let's say it was against Rhea Ripley or Bianca Belair, someone credible and established. The match was everything you want from a championship defense: hard-hitting action, near falls that had you on the edge of your seat, storytelling that made both women look like absolute stars. Vaquer retains after a grueling battle, and she's exhausted but triumphant. The crowd is giving her a standing ovation. Commentary is putting her over as one of the best pure wrestlers in the world. This is Stephanie Vaquer's moment. She's celebrating in the ring, holding the championship high. The confetti is falling or the pyro is going off, whatever WWE does for big title defenses now, and she's earned every second of the celebration. And then the lights cut out. The arena goes dark. And when they come back up, Nikki Bella is standing on the ramp. The crowd is confused at first. Is this a congratulations? Is Nikki here to show respect? And then Nikki charges the ring, grabs Vaquer from behind, and just destroys her. Not a wrestling attack, but a vicious, brutal assault. She's throwing Vaquer into the ring post, hitting her with the championship belt, delivering her finish multiple times. And then Nikki grabs a microphone and cuts a promo about how she built the women's division, how these new girls don't respect what the Bella twins did for them, how the championship belongs around her waist, not some nobody from Mexico. Yes, WWE actually let her say that, and how she's taking back what's hers. The crowd is stunned. Half are booing. Some are confused because they haven't seen Nikki in years and don't understand the context. And commentary is trying desperately to sell this as some historic moment instead of the character assassination it actually is. That's what happened on Raw. That's the shocking moment WWE thinks is going to draw viewers. And I am absolutely seething. Here's my first question, and I need brutal honesty: are you excited about Nikki Bella returning and immediately going after the Women's World Championship, or are you furious that WWE is once again prioritizing nostalgia over the current roster? No diplomacy, just raw reaction in the comments. Let's start with the most obvious problem: Stephanie Vaquer didn't deserve this. Vaquer is one of the most talented wrestlers WWE has signed in years. She was a megastar in CMLL in Mexico, where she had incredible matches and built a legitimate following. She's technically excellent, she can work any style, she has natural charisma, and she was getting over with WWE audiences through her work ethic and in-ring ability. She was doing everything right. She wasn't handed anything, she earned her championship through great matches and connecting with the audience. And WWE just fed her to Nikki Bella to make a returning part-timer look strong. Vaquer gets brutally beaten down in what should be her moment of triumph, making her look weak and vulnerable right after winning. Even if she ultimately defeats Nikki in their eventual match, the damage is done. The first thing WWE audiences will remember about Stephanie Vaquer's title reign is that Nikki Bella destroyed her. That's not how you build a champion. That's not how you establish someone as a credible title holder. That's how you immediately undermine everything you've been building. Think about what this does to Vaquer's credibility. She just had a hard-fought match, so you could argue she was exhausted and vulnerable, which is why Nikki's attack was so effective. But that excuse only goes so far. Champions are supposed to be resilient. They're supposed to be able to withstand challenges. Having Vaquer get obliterated so easily, so completely, makes her look like she can't handle the pressure of being champion. It makes the title feel less important because it's being held by someone who apparently can be taken out by a surprise attack from someone who hasn't wrestled regularly in years. Question for the women's wrestling fans: how would you have booked Stephanie Vaquer's first major defense as champion? Would you have protected her more, or is what WWE did acceptable storytelling? Now let's talk about Nikki Bella specifically, because this is where I get really angry. Nikki Bella has not been a full-time WWE performer since 2019. She left to focus on Total Bellas, her various business ventures, and her personal life. That's completely fine, she's entitled to pursue other opportunities. But she's been gone from active wrestling for 6 years. She hasn't been grinding on the road. She hasn't been working to keep up with how women's wrestling has evolved since she left. She hasn't earned her way back into a title program through proving she can still go at a main event level. The women's division when Nikki left was completely different from what it is now. In 2019, women's wrestling in WWE was still finding its footing in terms of consistent quality and opportunities. Now, in 2025, the women's division is stacked with incredible talent: Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Io Sky, Bayley, Charlotte, when she's around, Liv Morgan, and international stars like Stephanie Vaquer. These women have been tearing the house down weekly, having classics, proving that women's wrestling can main event and draw just as much as men's wrestling. And Nikki comes back and immediately gets positioned above all of them? She gets to skip the line, skip proving herself, skip working her way back up the card, and just gets handed a program with the women's world champion? Based on what? Based on name recognition from 6 years ago? Based on being on reality TV? Based on the fact that she's recognizable to casual fans who might not know who Stephanie Vaquer is? That's insulting to every woman on that roster who's been there working their ass off while Nikki was gone. It tells them that their work doesn't matter as much as legacy name value. It tells them that years of great performances and fan connection can be trumped by someone from the past walking back in and demanding a top spot. It's disrespectful, it's demoralizing, and it's exactly the kind of booking that makes current roster members start thinking about contract negotiations and alternative options. Here's a direct question: should returning stars ever get immediate main event positioning, or should they have to work their way back up to prove they can still compete at that level? What's fair to the current roster? Let's discuss the heel turn aspect specifically, because even that is poorly executed. Nikki Bella attacking Stephanie Vaquer makes her a heel, obviously, but what's her motivation? According to the promo she cut, it's that she built the women's division and deserves respect, and these new women don't appreciate the Bella twins' contributions. Okay, so her character motivation is entitlement, bitterness, jealousy of younger talent? That's not particularly compelling or original. And here's the bigger problem: is Nikki Bella actually wrong? Did the Bella twins contribute to women's wrestling in WWE? Absolutely they did. They were part of the transition period. They were mainstream stars who brought attention to the division. They worked hard to improve in the ring. Their contributions are legitimate. So if Nikki's heel character is based on saying things that are actually true, how does that work? Is she a heel because of how she's expressing these feelings, through violence, rather than what she's saying? That's a very thin line that requires nuanced character work, and based on one segment, I'm not confident WWE is going to execute that nuance. Furthermore, making Nikki's motivation be "I deserve respect for what I did in the past" is dangerous because a significant portion of the audience is going to agree with her. Bella Twins fans, and there are many, are going to see this as Nikki standing up for herself and her legacy. They're not going to see her as a villain for attacking some new girl they might not be familiar with. WWE might have accidentally created a tweener or even a babyface depending on which section of their audience they're playing to, which means the heat won't be clean and the storytelling will be muddled. Character motivation question: can you explain what Nikki Bella's heel character actually wants beyond respect and championship gold? What's her deeper motivation that makes her interesting as a villain? Try to articulate it in the comments. Now let me tell you what really happened backstage, because this is going to make you absolutely furious. Nikki Bella's return wasn't something WWE Creative was planning or building toward. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge, Nikki reached out to WWE about 3 weeks ago expressing interest in a return. But she had specific conditions: she wanted a high-profile program immediately, she wanted to be positioned as a top star rather than working her way back up, and she wanted creative input on her character and storylines. WWE's initial response was reportedly hesitant. The creative team explained they had plans in place for the women's division, that Stephanie Vaquer's title reign was being carefully built, and that inserting Nikki into the championship picture would require scrapping or delaying other plans. But then, and this is the crucial part, someone very high up in WWE management got involved. This person looked at the Netflix transition coming up, looked at the need for recognizable names that casual audiences and Netflix executives would know, and decided that Nikki Bella's mainstream recognition was worth disrupting their creative plans. So the directive came down: sign Nikki, give her what she wants, position her in the title picture immediately. The creative team pushed back, pointing out that this would damage Stephanie Vaquer's momentum and that Nikki hadn't proven she could still work at a main event level. Those concerns were dismissed because business priorities outweighed creative concerns. Nikki was offered a deal reportedly worth more per appearance than most women on the full-time roster make in several months, and she accepted. But here's the part that's going to make you livid. There was another women's storyline that was supposed to happen at this time. A current roster member who's been with WWE for years, who's been consistently excellent, who was supposed to be the next challenger for Stephanie Vaquer's championship. That entire program got scrapped to make room for Nikki. That wrestler was told your program is being postponed with no clear timeline for when it might be rescheduled. And she just has to accept it because a reality TV star decided she wanted to play wrestler again for a few months. Backstage question: if you were a full-time WWE women's wrestler and you got bumped from a championship program to make room for a part-timer who hasn't been around in years, how would you feel? Would you be able to stay motivated and professional? Let's talk about what this does to the Women's World Championship itself, because titles matter in wrestling even though WWE often forgets that. Championships should be treated as the most important thing in their respective divisions. Holding a championship should mean you're the best, that you've proven yourself against all challengers, that you've earned that position at the top. The championship should make the person holding it feel more important and credible. But when you have the champion get destroyed immediately after a title defense by someone who just showed up, what does that say about the championship? It says the title doesn't actually protect you. It says being champion doesn't mean you're safe from being made to look weak. It devalues the championship by having the person holding it be so easily victimized. Even if Vaquer ultimately retains against Nikki, which she probably will because that's usually how these programs go, the championship has already been devalued by this moment. And think about the message this sends to everyone else in the women's division. If you're Rhea Ripley or Bianca Belair or Liv Morgan, you're watching Stephanie Vaquer get demolished by Nikki Bella, and you're thinking, I've been here working my ass off, having great matches, building my character, and Nikki gets to come back and jump straight to a title shot? That creates resentment. That damages locker room morale. That makes people wonder if their hard work actually matters or if WWE is just going to prioritize nostalgia and name recognition over current performance. Championship booking question: should the Women's World Champion ever be booked to look as vulnerable as Stephanie Vaquer did in this segment? Is there a way to do champion gets attacked angles without damaging the title's prestige? Now let's discuss the in-ring implications, because this is crucial. Can Nikki Bella still go at a main event level? Nikki was never considered one of the best pure workers during her initial run. She was solid, she was reliable, she had good matches with great opponents, but she wasn't carrying matches or having classics consistently. And she hasn't been wrestling regularly for 6 years. Ring rust is real. Even the best wrestlers need time to get back into ring shape after extended absences. So what happens when Nikki has to deliver in a 15 to 20 minute championship match with Stephanie Vaquer? Vaquer is one of the best workers in the world. She can absolutely carry someone if needed. But should she have to? Should the champion have to work extra hard to make a challenger look good because that challenger is rusty and hasn't proven they can still perform at a high level? That's backwards. The challenger should be rising to the champion's level, not the other way around. And here's my concern: if the match isn't good, who gets blamed? Fans who don't know Stephanie Vaquer's body of work might assume she's the problem rather than recognizing that Nikki is rusty. That could damage Vaquer's reputation unfairly. But if the match is good, it'll be because Vaquer carried it, but Nikki will probably get credit for proving she still got it even though she was being carried. Either way, Vaquer is in a no-win situation. This is the problem with bringing back legends for active competition rather than special appearances or non-wrestling roles. If they can't deliver in the ring anymore, it exposes them and damages their legacy. If they can still deliver, it raises questions about why they're taking spots from full-timers who work year-round. There's almost no scenario where everyone comes out better. In-ring question: be honest, based on what you remember of Nikki Bella's wrestling ability and the fact she hasn't competed regularly in 6 years, do you think she can have a genuinely great match with Stephanie Vaquer? What's your expectation level? Let's talk about the optics of this attack, because the specific way it was done matters. Nikki attacked Stephanie Vaquer immediately after Vaquer had just finished a grueling championship defense. Vaquer was exhausted and vulnerable, and had her guard down because she was celebrating. Nikki got the advantage through a sneak attack, not through any demonstration of superior ability or dominance. This is classic heel tactics, which is fine for establishing Nikki as a villain, but it also means she didn't look particularly strong or impressive. She looked opportunistic and cowardly. If WWE wanted to make Nikki seem like a legitimate threat, they should have had her interrupt before the match and challenge Vaquer to face her immediately after the scheduled defense. Then Vaquer could accept, showing her fighting spirit, and Nikki could beat her, or come close, to establish herself as championship caliber. That would make Nikki look strong rather than just opportunistic. But WWE went with the sneak attack route, which generates heat but doesn't establish credibility. And the specific nature of the beating matters too. Was it a quick attack that left Vaquer down but not completely destroyed? Or was it a prolonged assault that left Vaquer's stretcher out, completely helpless, utterly annihilated? The former leaves Vaquer some dignity and suggests she could fight back if she wasn't exhausted. The latter makes her look hopelessly outmatched and weak. Based on how these segments usually go, WWE probably did the latter because they love their OMG moments of extreme violence, but that's the worst option for the champion. Booking philosophy question: when a heel attacks a champion to set up a program, should the champion be left looking somewhat resilient, or should they be completely destroyed to build sympathy? Which creates better storytelling long term? Now let's address the elephant in the room, the racial and international dynamics of having Nikki Bella, an American-born star, attack and belittle Stephanie Vaquer, a Mexican wrestler who came from CMLL. If Nikki's promo included anything about Vaquer being from Mexico or being an outsider or not representing WWE properly, that's dangerous territory that WWE probably didn't think through carefully enough. WWE has a terrible history of how they portray international wrestlers, especially those from Mexico and Latin America. Too often, they fall into stereotypes or have them be presented as somehow less than American wrestlers. If Nikki's heel character is positioned as a real American WWE star versus Stephanie as the foreign outsider, that's xenophobic storytelling that's going to rightfully be called out. Wrestling has a long, ugly history of using nationality and ethnicity as cheap heat, and WWE should be well past that in 2025. Even if Nikki's promo didn't explicitly go there, the optics of an American star returning to attack and demean a Mexican champion are problematic. WWE needs to be very careful about how they frame this conflict moving forward. It should be about Nikki's entitlement and Vaquer defending her championship, not about nationality or who belongs in WWE. But given WWE's track record, I'm not confident they'll handle this with the necessary sensitivity. Representation question: how important is it to you that Stephanie Vaquer, as a Mexican champion and one of the few Latina women prominently featured in WWE, is protected and presented respectfully in this storyline? Does WWE have a responsibility to be conscious of these dynamics? Let's discuss the broader implications for the women's division, because this affects more than just Vaquer and Nikki. WWE's women's roster is stacked right now. There are so many talented women who deserve opportunities and screen time. Every segment that goes to Nikki Bella is a segment that could go to developing someone else. Every match Nikki has is a match that could be used to build a current roster member. Every minute of TV time dedicated to this feud is time not being spent on the other women. And here's what's particularly frustrating: there are current roster members who could easily fill the role Nikki is being brought in for. If WWE wanted a veteran heel to challenge Stephanie Vaquer, they have options. Turn Charlotte heel again and have her claim she deserves the title more than some newcomer. Have Sonya Deville return from injury with a chip on her shoulder. Use Shayna Baszler as the dominant veteran who thinks these younger champions haven't proven themselves. Any of those options would serve a current roster member while accomplishing the same storytelling goal. But WWE went with Nikki because they wanted the nostalgia pop and the mainstream name recognition. They prioritized marketing over storytelling, brand recognition over current roster development. And the entire women's division suffers as a result because they're all competing for limited screen time, and now a significant chunk of that time is going to someone who won't even be there full time. Roster allocation question: if you were booking the WWE women's division, would you rather use TV time to build current full-time roster members, or bring back past stars for part-time programs? Where's the right balance? Now let's talk about what happens after this feud, because WWE never seems to think that far ahead. Let's say this program runs for 2 or 3 months. They have a match at the next pay-per-view, maybe a rematch, maybe a stipulation match to blow it off. Stephanie Vaquer presumably retains because you don't put the championship on a part-timer. Then what? Nikki doesn't stick around, she's got other commitments, and she's not going to work a full-time schedule. So she just leaves? Goes back to being a part-timer? Occasionally shows up for special appearances? And what about Stephanie Vaquer? Does this program elevate her? Does defeating Nikki actually help her career? Or does it just get her back to where she was before Nikki showed up and attacked her? This is the fundamental problem with part-timer programs: they're rarely designed to elevate the full-time roster. They're designed to be spectacles that generate temporary interest, and then everyone moves on without anything really changing. The best-case scenario is that Stephanie Vaquer gets a huge rub from defeating a returning legend, proving herself against a big name, and establishing her credibility. But WWE's track record suggests that's not what happens. What usually happens is the full-timer wins, the part-timer leaves, and the storyline is forgotten within a month because WWE has moved on to the next thing. Nothing gets built. Nobody gets elevated long-term. It's just content to fill time between actual storyline development. Long-term booking question: assuming Stephanie Vaquer retains against Nikki Bella, what should Vaquer's next program be to properly capitalize on that victory? Who should challenge her next, and how do you build from this feud? Let's address the Nikki Bella deserves this argument, because I know some people will make it. The argument goes: Nikki Bella and Brie Bella were pioneers in WWE's women's evolution. They were there during the transition from divas to superstars. They helped legitimize women's wrestling for mainstream audiences through Total Divas and Total Bellas. They deserve respect for their contributions, and Nikki deserves one more run if she wants it. Here's my response: I agree that the Bella twins deserve respect for what they did. I'm not trying to diminish their contributions. But deserving respect is different from deserving an immediate championship program after being gone for 6 years. You can honor someone's legacy without giving them active roster spots that could go to current performers. Give Nikki a Hall of Fame induction. Give her special appearances. Have her do non-wrestling segments. Give her a Legends contract where she shows up occasionally for moments that don't take up active storyline space. But having her come back and immediately challenge for a world championship isn't respecting her legacy, it's exploiting her name value at the expense of current roster development. It's treating the past as more valuable than the present. It's telling your current roster that their work doesn't matter as much as what someone did years ago. That's not respect, that's short-sighted booking that prioritizes nostalgia over growth. Wrestling is about creating new legends, not just recycling old ones. Nikki Bella had her time at the top. She was champion, she main event, she got her moments. Now it's time for Stephanie Vaquer and the current generation to have their moments, to create their legacies, to be the stars that the next generation looks up to. Every spot Nikki takes is a spot that could be used to build that future. And that's a bad trade. Legacy question: how should WWE honor past stars and their contributions without taking opportunities away from current roster members? What's the right way to balance respecting the past and building the future? Here's what should have happened if WWE wanted to bring Nikki Bella back. First, announce her return in advance. Don't make it a surprise, build anticipation. Second, have her return in a non-wrestling capacity initially. Maybe she's a special referee, or a guest on a talk show segment, or managing someone. Get her back on TV without immediately putting her in the ring. Third, if she's going to wrestle, have her work some matches below the title level first. Face some mid-card opponents, prove she can still go, build her back up organically. Then, and only then, if she's earned it through performance and fan response, can you consider a championship program. But even then, it should be as someone who had to work their way back up, who had to prove themselves, who earned that opportunity through demonstrating current ability rather than coasting on past reputation. That's how you bring back a legend respectfully while also protecting your current roster and championship. But WWE didn't do any of that. They went straight to Nikki attacks the champion and immediately becomes the #1 contender because they wanted the shock value and the immediate buzz. It's lazy, it's short-sighted, and it's disrespectful to everyone involved except Nikki herself. Fantasy Booking Challenge: you book Nikki Bella's return to WWE in a way that honors her legacy, protects the current roster, and creates compelling television without immediately putting her in a championship program. Can you do it? Share your ideas. Let me talk about Stephanie Vaquer specifically and why she deserves so much better than this. Vaquer is one of the most exciting international talents WWE has signed in years. She's not just a good wrestler, she's a great wrestler who's had incredible matches in Mexico with CMLL. She has star quality. She connects with audiences despite language barriers because her in-ring work is so expressive and compelling. She represents the globalization of WWE's women's division and the recognition that incredible talent exists all over the world. Vaquer should be protected. She should be built carefully. She should be given opponents who make her look strong in victory and resilient in adversity. She should be positioned as someone special, someone worth paying attention to, someone who represents the future of women's wrestling in WWE. Instead, WWE fed her to a returning nostalgia act who hasn't been around in 6 years. That's not protecting your investment. That's not building a star. That's sacrificing your future for a temporary ratings bump. And think about the message this sends to other international talents WWE might want to sign. If you're a top women's wrestler in Japan, Mexico, the UK, or anywhere else, and you see how WWE treated Stephanie Vaquer, bringing her in, giving her the championship, and then immediately having her get demolished by a returning American star, why would you want to sign with WWE? You'd be worried that they don't actually value international wrestlers, that they see you as temporary attractions rather than long-term investments, that they'll feed you to their American stars to make those stars look good. WWE is trying to expand globally, trying to sign the best talent from around the world, trying to present themselves as the true world wrestling entertainment. But then they do something like this that completely undermines that messaging. You can't claim to value international wrestling while simultaneously booking your international champions to look weak compared to American returnees. The actions contradict the stated values. Final question about Vaquer specifically: what does Stephanie Vaquer need to do in her next few months to recover from this angle and re-establish herself as a dominant, credible champion? How does she rebuild from being attacked and humiliated? Here's the absolute bottom line. Nikki Bella attacking and betraying Stephanie Vaquer on WWE Raw is everything wrong with modern WWE's approach to women's wrestling in one segment. It prioritizes nostalgia over current roster development. It gives opportunities to part-timers at the expense of full-timers who've been there working every week. It undermines a champion who was being carefully built. It potentially introduces problematic dynamics about nationality and who belongs in WWE. And it demonstrates that when push comes to shove, WWE still doesn't trust their current women's roster to carry major storylines without bringing back past stars. This wasn't Nikki Bella earning her way back through proving she can still compete at a high level. This was WWE paying her to come back and immediately take a spot in the main event of the women's division because they're desperate for mainstream name recognition heading into the Netflix era. The creative team's objections were ignored. A current roster members championship program got scrapped. And Stephanie Vaquer had her big championship moment ruined by having to play victim to someone who hasn't been around in years. Nikki Bella is a legend who deserves respect for her contributions to women's wrestling, but this isn't the right way to bring her back. This isn't the right program for her. And Stephanie Vaquer deserves so much better than being used as a stepping stone for a part-timer's comeback story. The women's division deserves better. The current roster deserves better. And we as fans deserve better than watching WWE repeatedly make the same mistakes of prioritizing the past over the future. So yeah, Nikki Bella attacks and betrays Stephanie Vaquer at WWE Raw, massive heel turn, championship chaos. It's generating buzz. People are talking. And WWE thinks that's success. But creating conversation isn't the same as creating good storytelling. Shocking people isn't the same as satisfying them. And sacrificing your future stars to momentarily elevate your past stars isn't building a sustainable business, it's taking out a loan you'll have to pay back eventually when you realize you don't have anyone left to build around. That's your WWE Women's Division in 2025, incredibly talented, criminally mismanaged, and constantly undermined by short-sighted booking decisions that prove the company still hasn't learned what made women's wrestling special in the first place.